Okay, so maybe this bright sunlight isn't gonna work for this camera. I just wanted to sit in the sun 'cause it's so nice. Let's see. There. There. Okay, so this camera doesn't like bright sun. I just wanted to say I've got a pretty brief message today, and it's just so positive, so uplifting. You chose your archetype for a reason. So I just started working with a life coach that, oh, I just absolutely loved her. It was like 20 some years ago. My kids were little. I was in my 30s. It was in a totally different period of my life. And so then we just kind of fell out of touch for about 20 years. You know how that happens. And then you kind of get back in touch, and it's like nothing, you just don't even skip a beat. It's like, oh, well, tell me about the last 20 years of your life. Let's catch up. Anyway, we're working together again, and she's bringing in Carolyn Mace's archetypes. So I'm going to pop open Rumi and just see what he has to tell us today. But I also just want to say, and this my message. This is part of my formula for this lifetime. It's what I do is to encourage others and lift them up and say, you are exactly the way you're supposed to be, and have some respect for it. Stop carrying around shame about it because it's actually strategic. So I'm going to give you an example with all of this. Oh, hi, Legine. Again, good morning. So, how do you figure out what your archetype is? Well, we just started with the archetypes of children. So I'll just go through the ones. This is all just kind of from memory, and you can kind of think about this and maybe just look up Carolyn Mace, Sacred Contracts. Let's see, I borrowed the book from somebody. It was all amazing how it all synchronistically happened yesterday. But okay, so the children, there's the wounded child archetype. And this is strategic too. I mean, we tend to see the shadow side of all of these, but there's a very powerful positive upside to all this. So like the person that's chunking everything back into their childhood, and I'm this way because I was abused, and the judgment that we can bring against that is like, oh my God, can't you just get on with your life? But the gift that they bring is that they can help other people see what's the wound in your childhood. How are you acting out of that wound instead of, how can you honor that wound? So there's the wounded child, there is the magical child. And I have always thought of myself as being primarily the magical child, where they tend to see the magic and the positive and the enchantment in everything. And one of the shadow sides is that they kind of go into like magical thinking is their favorite defense mechanism. So like kind of a lack of an ability to be realistic with something. Like, oh, that little rattle in my car it'll just go away. And turns out you need oil and you just ruined your engine, that kind of magical thinking. I'll just manifest it going away. Or, I just don't want to look at this thing in my character. So I'm going to pretend that. So I've applied that magical child. But the gift is that they have the capacity to see magic in the world, which we know is real. Okay, then there's um, the eternal child and the divine child and the nature child. So the nature child, they go to nature to recharge. That's their place. They don't like to wear shoes. They only wear clothing because it's required to make climbing trees easier. Nature is it's like where they go. They get along with nature better than they get along with people. The divine child is very rare, where they are kind of like the Christ child. They're very connected to the divine, and they have like they're a divine emissary, and they don't deal well with darkness and shadow shit. They just can't deal with the dark side of life and evil and all of that. Okay, and then the eternal child. And my big aha is that I am the eternal child. So this is the Peter Pan. I don't want to grow up. And they they just can't stomach the idea of aging. I'm just going to really show you my hand here. The point is, I've had a lot of shame about being the eternal child. I've had so much shame about it that I never just peeled back the lid to see everything that's there, the goodness of it. And when it's fully integrated and when I can, unpack the shadow and deal with it, find ways of dealing with the grown up aspects of my life and still retain that eternal child. And so yesterday I had this experience of literally laughing out loud because I could just hear myself saying, who in the hell would want to grow up? I mean, for some people, growing up is freedom, liberation, and empowerment. And for me, it was like a massive loss of something, the only thing worth living for. I was like, 2 weeks of vacation a year? That's what happens when people grow up? And the cost of living and all. And I was like, no, that's just not going to be me. I'm not going to do that. So, so I didn't. And I've figured out how to remain the eternal child in a lot of ways in my life. And I'm always in the fresh, immediate moment. My favorite thing is to exist like a child. And so my message to everybody today is okay, so here's the crux. So it's beyond just being entertaining and like emotionally healing. It's actually strategic that you chose this archetype. So this is the beauty of and the genius of what Carolyn Mace delivers is that you chose this archetype to deliver your gifts and fulfill your mission in the world. So rather, we carry all this shame about a particular, shadow side and we fail to see the strategy. So one thing that I've identified is that the strategy of the dark and the evil, like the devil is called the accuser in the Bible, and he stands before the throne of God accusing the brethren, like, well, he did that and she did that. And so there's this onslaught of this dark cloud energy of judgment and all the things you've done wrong and the mistakes you've made. And it's like, it's a very subtle and constant, I would say even AI stream coming towards us. And because when you're injured in that way and you feel fundamentally wrong, so the idea of original sin. Thank you, Catholic Church, the great Satan. Thank you, Deep State, for that. And then all the other ways that they make us feel like we're the problem, we're toxic, we could infect people. We are fundamentally, like when we're born, I'm just gonna say it, we're racist. That's just a repackaging of original sin. And what's the other one? Oh yeah, um, constantly participating in the polluting of the earth and stuff like that. And you know what I'm talking about. It's like you can't engage in the world. I mean, there are probably maybe 3 people in the whole world who haven't done something in their life to promote the petroleum industry, which is destroying the earth. So it's like you're part of the problem. Make you dependent on this whole system and then tell you that this is destroying the planet. So there's this guilt, I'm wrong. So the beauty and the strategy of me being the eternal child is like, I'm not going to take responsibility for anything. I hate taking responsibility for anything. So I just laughed out loud yesterday when I was like, okay, that's my weapon and my shield against the dark. I'm going to come into this world and I have this mission to fulfill. And even my defense mechanisms and my shadow side are going to serve that purpose. And yes, I need to grow up and take responsibility for things, of course. But this is this huge, beautiful, wonderful thing that I got is like, if you can we've got a pretty good handle on the shadow side, the things that we're not so good at managing or handling or what we like to deny. And my invitation to you today is to reframe that as how is that a strategic choice that you made so that you could better fulfill your mission on this planet? Because it's not who you are. You're this infinite being, whole and complete in the higher dimensions. But when you came down into this little dense dimension, you chose this archetype because it would serve your purpose in helping to liberate the planet. So let's see what Rumi has to say. Oh my gosh. So this is the middle of a long poem, not a poem, but it's like a story called The King and the Handmaiden and the Doctor. So I won't explain the whole story, but I'll just read the underlined part. O Husam, if the friend came to you completely naked, so the friend is capitalized and means like that divine, the divine friend, like God, the friend. O Husam, if the friend came to you completely naked, your chest could not stand it. You wouldn't be here in your body any longer. Ask for what you want, but within some limits. And what that says to me is that if you came here in your divine completeness, if you as God, the God emanation, the God spark, came here without any limitations, you couldn't be here in the 3D. You would explode everything and everybody. You had to come with an ego, with a body, with a dysfunctional family. O Husam, if the friend came to you completely naked, your chest could not stand it. I mean, if a 5D, 9D being came into our midst, we wouldn't really be able to relate to it. You wouldn't be here in your body any longer. Ask for what you want, but within some limits. Yeah, so that just tells me that, be in the world, but not of it. We came here in the guise of humanity, but everything is strategic. So anyway, that's my message for today. I love you. Thank you for joining. Love yourself today. Have some respect. Have some respect for yourself and your strategy or strategic thinking. Okay, bye.